And let's face it, real people are annoying, unlikable a lot of the time. Hi, my name is Juan. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. So today I'm here to talk about The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen, which is this very famous, huge novel from 2001. So before I go into that, I just want to say really quickly that The Corrections is the book for March for my 12 books for 2022 reading project. I'm going to link to that project or to the announcement video for that project here and in the description box, so in case you want more information. But whether you're here because of that project or not, let's get into The Corrections. So The Corrections is Jonathan Franzen's third novel, but it is also his breakthrough novel. So he had published 2 novels before that. I haven't read them. I have no idea if they're any good. I will get to them because I want to read more by Jonathan Franzen. At this point, I feel like I want to read all his fiction. This was actually a reread for me. I didn't say that in the announcement video, but I read The Corrections many years ago, probably about 10 years ago. For some reason, I didn't remember much about it. I just remember little things about it. So I thought it would be a good idea to read it, and I'm so glad I did. What is this novel about? Well, it is really centered on a family. And don't worry, there are not going to be any spoilers in this video review. So the family, the Lamberts, so you have the parents, Alfred and Enid, and there are adult children who are Gary, Denise, and Chip. And what I immediately thought about these characters as they were introduced in the novel gradually was how unhappy they were. They are really unhappy characters. Each of them is very different. So Alfred is now retired. Enid is this manipulative person who manipulates her husband and her children, but she's also deeply unhappy. Like, it's not like her marriage is loveless, it's more complicated than that. And what I like about the book is that it can be very nuanced in its characterizations. It can be very broad also in some aspects. It's an interesting mixed bag, this novel. And then the 3 children are all very different from each other. They're also deeply unhappy. So you have Gary, who is in a marriage. He's married to a very manipulative woman. So, I don't know, you could argue that he kind of, in a way, married his mother, if you see what I mean. Then we have Denise, who is a chef. And by the way, Gary is a banker, I forgot to say that. Denise is a chef, and she gets herself involved with people that she probably shouldn't. Yeah, she has a very complicated love life. And Chip doesn't really have a complicated love life as such, but he, at some point, is a professor at a university, and he gets fired because of an affair he has with a student. Everything is from the character's point of view. So, I'm not going to say whether he abuses power or not, we don't know. He gets very obsessed with a female student. They do have a relationship, but he's incredibly obsessed with her, and he loses his job. Yeah, he's the black sheep of the family, if you like. He ends up getting involved in some scheme and has to move to Lithuania. Yeah, the plot is quite convoluted, but it's easy to follow. The point is that all those 5 main characters are unhappy. And they're incredibly unlikable. But this novel is so good that I ended up loving all those characters, even though they're unlikable. If I talked to you about them, if I went more into what happens to them in the novel and what they do and things they say, you would think, wow, they're really unlikable characters. They are, but the novel is written in such a sympathetic way that you end up loving all of them, or at least that's what happened to me. Thinking about it, I guess I ended up loving those people, the Lamberts, because they come off almost as real people. And let's face it, real people are annoying, unlikable a lot of the time, but you still love them. You still love your parents or your wife or your siblings or whatever. So this is kind of the relationship I had and I still have with the characters in this novel. I see them as real people, and therefore I see them for what they are, and I love them despite everything. One thing that also surprised me about this novel, and I think it's why it was so popular at the time and continues to be read by a lot of people, is that it is simultaneously a literary novel and also a popular or conventional or commercial family saga. So it's a story, you can read it as the story of a family, like a multi-generational story of a family, and have a great time, or you can read it as this clever literary novel, like kind of postmodern novel that uses all these tricks, literary tricks, to impress you. And you can read it as both. That's kind of, I think, what I did. The Corrections is a marvelous novel. It is hugely entertaining. I had such a good time reading it, and I have to say that I was into it right from the beginning. As soon as I started reading it, I loved it. I think that the novel gets better and better, so I wouldn't be surprised if some readers were tempted to bail early on in the book. But I think that would be a big mistake. If you are watching this and you've started reading the novel, or you're going to start reading the novel and you think, oh, this is a bit plodding, it's a bit boring, I don't care, keep reading because it gets a lot better. So there is this central question in the novel which seems really stupid, like really simple, but it is a deeper question that it seems. And that question is that whether Enid, the mother of this, Alfred's wife and mother to his children, whether she will succeed or not in getting her whole family together for Christmas. That's a central question of the novel, and that will get resolved and it will be amazing. And I think that Christmas time, I'm not telling you whether they get together or not, because that would be a huge spoiler, but that Christmas when it happens is, I think to me, is the climax of the novel. And then the novel gets a little bit overlong after that, but that's a really key moment, and the way that's built up and the suspense around that is such that I wouldn't spoil it. There is a lot of suspense in this novel, not just about the Christmas question, but a lot of the time in all the different storylines and all the different threads, there is a lot of suspense. So I would say that The Corrections is a page-turner. It's a book that I just couldn't put down, and I read it in a long weekend. And it is a long novel, but I just couldn't stop reading. This novel is so amazing because it has so many layers. It is a very layered novel. So it's what I was saying, you know, you can read it as a family saga and have a great time about this, reading about this dysfunctional, if you like, family. I don't think they're that dysfunctional. I think they're, you know, I think a lot of readers would recognize themselves or their families in, maybe not in the whole thing, but in aspects of it. Okay, so that's one layer. But if we go deeper, The Corrections is also a social critique of America in the 1990s, mostly in the second part of, in the second half of the decade. There is another layer to this novel, which is very humane, and it will make you think a lot and have a lot of feelings. It did to me. This novel also deals with aging and decadence. If you have older parents or maybe grandparents, or if you've seen how people in old age decay and what happens to them, you know, reading about Alfred and Enid, but mostly Alfred, is incredibly touching. I think that one of the best things, or one of the strengths of this novel, are the set pieces. This novel has great set pieces, and you know, some of them don't go anywhere at all. Some of them do, they lead somewhere, but some of them just, you wonder why they are there, but most of them are so fun to read that who cares? What didn't I like about this novel? Okay, well, not everything in this novel works. It's a very long novel, as I said. There's a lot. I think Franzen throws a lot into it, and a lot of it works, but not everything works. For example, I wasn't crazy about the stuff about Lithuania, you know, the stuff that happens before Lithuania and while Chip is in Lithuania. You know, I said earlier that he gets involved in some kind of money laundering scheme and he has to move to Lithuania. Lithuania is a small country in the Baltic region. It is a former Soviet republic, okay, so it probably rings a bell. And this is the 90s, so we're still dealing in that kind of almost immediate post-Sovietic world. Anyway, all that stuff I didn't care about, and all the corporate stuff I also didn't care about. And I don't want to be pretentious, because who am I? I'm not really a writer. But I think this novel could have done with some editing. And it's not about the length, I don't mind, it could have been even longer, but some of the set pieces didn't add to anything, and some of the stuff was dull. What I mean is that sometimes I would be reading sections of the novel and wondering, well, why is this here? What are you trying to tell me, Jonathan Franzen? Do I really need to know this? I don't think I do. You'll still like this novel. I still like the novel despite its faults. I still think it's an amazing, brilliant, one of the best novels I've ever read. I don't think it would be fair to say that everything worked and everything was perfect. There was a lot of fat to trim there. So who is this novel for? Okay, so now, because the novel can be read both as a conventional family saga or as a postmodernist novel, I think it has wide appeal. I mean, I don't have to say that the novel was a bestseller, so that says something, but it is also a postmodernist novel. So if you like Thomas Pynchon or Don DeLillo, for example, I think you will like the corrections. But also if you like Anne Tyler or John Updike, I think you will also like it. I think the corrections is a lot less demanding than other postmodernist novels, but it's just as good. So the book for April is something completely different. It's an English novel entitled The Blue Flower by Penelope Fitzgerald. I'll be back at the end of April, right at the end of April, with a video review of that novel. But of course you will see me, I hope, between now and then for more book reviews and other videos. So thanks for watching, and I see you again very soon. Bye.